Welcome, everyone, to TREKNOPOD, a short-form podcast hosted by two dads who love to talk Trek. I am Captain Vactor. With me each week, side by side, in our co-captain's chair on the bridge of the USS TREKNOPOD is Captain Shaw. Captain Shaw, how are you doing today?
Ooh, I'm doing so good. I'm so good. I'm so excited for this episode today. I'm so thrilled to talk about this episode and talk about and meet our guest and everything too. It's going to be great.
Well, I've already traveled to the future, and I know that this is the best episode we've ever done, thanks to our guests. So we're going to have a great time today. We're recording this episode Friday, March 10th, and this week and every week, we're going to be dropping an episode focused on our thoughts on the current Trek TV show. Now, currently, we're going through Star Trek Picard Season 3, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about Episode 4, No-Win Scenario. And with us, we have a very special guest on today's episode. He is one of the greatest people in the history of the world. He loves to go by Q, and that was perfect for this episode. We have the best writer in the history of literature, the best writer in the history of television,
sure,
the greatest guy in the history of the world, Mr. Bryan Q. Miller.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hello,
Thank
sir.
you, gentlemen. What's up?
We are very happy to have you on the episode this week, and we wanted to start off because we know you love origin stories. So you want to tell us your Star Trek origin story. How did you, in this crazy world, get caught up in the Trek?
It was I think I tweeted about this to somebody the other day. It was it was syndicated TV, right? And so it was, I think, the first episode, but technically, okay, wait, let me roll back one more. The first episode I ever saw, period, God, was it Spock's brain? With the flying things that were all over the place. They look like Minox from Star Wars.
Yes.
And I had broken my arm and was laying on the couch in that window now as a parent that I'm aware of, where you're like, is the kid really broken, or are they just like overreacting? And so it was during that test period where I was just left with an ice pack to lay on the couch and watched that episode, which I didn't understand and found frankly horrifying when I was 6, probably. And then I want to say I didn't touch it again until, God, I must have been 12 or 13. I'm trying to remember. It was that summer. It was the summer of the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 cliffhanger.
Oof,
and
yes.
That was the first episode I saw of Next Generation, was that.
Ooh.
And then I was like, what? And so I knew, because our syndication package, it ran a Next Gen every night of the week at 9:00. So that one, I think Wednesday nights was the new night, I think, at the time. And so I watched that one on a Wednesday night, and I was like, oh my God. So like Thursday night, I show up and I'm like, all right, here we go. And then it rolled back around in the syndication package to like Farpoint Part 1.
Oh,
and
wow.
so I was like, oh, that's not what I was going to watch. But what was cool was it had hooked me in enough to where that summer, every night that summer until it caught back up with Part 2 when that premiered in season 4. Oh no, was it end of season 2 was Best of Both Worlds 1, or end of season 3 was Best of Both Worlds 1?
I think it was 3.
It was the end of season 3, right? Yeah. And so like I had to get through all the Tasha Yar stuff. I had to get through all the Pulaski stuff. And then and then there's like a quantum leap in quality between season 2 and season 3.
Yeah.
And then finally it caught back up with itself. And so then I understood how the syndication schedule worked. But that was really my start. And then there was one, God, with the old Trek stuff, aside from that episode with my broken arm, there was one Saturday, which is part of my like writer origin story or movie file origin story or whatever. I had a little 9-inch like picture tube TV with the rabbit ears because we didn't have cable, and on the channel 26, which God wasn't even like an affiliate of anything, it was just channel 26. They would always run like with little like, aluminum siding ads, like they would run just like stuff on Saturday afternoons. And so my 1-2 punch that locked me in forever was Aliens followed by Wrath of Khan. And so, but it's just like in my room in the dark, like on that one Saturday with a little 9-inch screen, just like, and so that locked me in. So, I've kind of been with it, save maybe 2 seasons of Enterprise. Since
I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. Have you, now being the accomplished writer that you are, have you written anything Star Trek related?
No. There was a thing, and I kicked myself about it, but there was a conversation I had with an editor at IDW, like maybe, and this was before, Jackson Lanzig started like the 5-year mission stuff. This was like maybe 10 years ago. And they were like, yeah, so we're looking to do like more Star Trek stuff. So if you have any Star Trek stories, and I was so intimidated just to be like, well, like, cause so many things that we come to write, especially when it's pre-existing IP, like you really have to open the hood. Like when you get into that and just start like, okay, well, this is the piece that works for me. This is the piece that doesn't. And I didn't really want to, in my heart of hearts, like open the hood on Star Trek, and just wanted to still have it like as a thing I could enjoy without it being work. So I had a chance and it didn't. And do I feel bad about it? Maybe I do. Maybe it will haunt me for the rest of my days. But that's the closest I've gotten.
If an opportunity came around again, would you take it this time around?
I think so. I don't know how much real estate is left now that they have all their new events happening.
There's so many things happening. Yeah, right now it's crazy. And you mentioned that Year 5 comic, and that is a great series. Mm-hmm. That is excellent. I turned Vector onto that one. I was like, I just happened to stumble upon it. I was just looking for something Star Trek comic book related, and like I couldn't believe how well it was written and how much it captured the dialogue and the stylings and even like the inflection of the actors and the characters. I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what it should
that whole
be.
desk over there, though, they're killing it over there with all the Star Trek stuff. Like it like even and which I love, like Lower Decks, like even like Bryan Q North's stuff with the Lower Decks comic is like really good and fits in like exactly with the voice of the show and how the show works. And so it's a good little assemblage they have of their corners of the universe over there right now.
Well, if you do ever get an opportunity, I'm just putting it out there. Since you've killed Vactor twice in a comic book,
put a little tiny red shirt on him.
Yeah, I was saying, could you put us in as red shirts on some planet and we don't make it out alive?
I'll kill that some bitch so many times. It's all good.
All right. You've heard it here first. We're going to be in a comic book one day.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, now that we know a little bit more about Q, let's talk about our weekly discussion of this week's Picard. Like I said, season 3, episode 4, No Win Scenario, first aired yesterday, March 9th, as we record this, 2023.
It's streamed. It doesn't air anymore.
Oh, yeah. Streamed March 9th, 2023.
Okay.
Directed by Johnny Frakes, Riker himself. Written by Terry Matalas and Sean Tretta. So we want to put up a red alert if you haven't seen the episode. We're going to spoil it for you right now. But the synopsis: with time running out, Picard, Riker, and crew must confront the sins of their past and heal fresh wounds, while the Titan drifts helplessly towards certain destruction within a mysterious space anomaly. All right. We know Captain Shaw. We know Captain Vector. We don't know Q. So, Mr. Bryan Q Miller.
Yes.
What'd you think about this week's episode?
Well, I've been dying to just say, beam me up, Scotchy. So, yeah. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was I thought it was a really good like finally like the train left the station a little bit, like just like we're past the setup and everybody's kind of like getting into gear, and but like performance wise and even like directing wise, like it was just not that any of them have been not good so far in this run in season 3, but specifically just it hit like all the right like next gen notes, just with like teamwork and with weird space shit, and you know, the heartstringy poignant stuff with the sun, and even the devastating takedown of Picard in the bar that Captain Dipshit did, where I was like, no, don't, like, you're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong, Captain Dipshit, but he's an old man. He's an old man. You don't have to be that mean to an old man.
Well, it's funny, you know, you mentioned that your first episode that really hooked you, well, the first episode you watched really was, for TNG, was Best of Both Worlds, which is all about Wolf 359, and that's exactly what that whole bit was
as soon
about.
As he came in with the cockeye and he started like talking about like star dates and shit, I was like, no, okay, all right, we're gonna yell at him about stuff he can't. All right,
yeah. Oh my goodness.
So, Captain Shaw, what'd you think about this episode?
Yeah, totally agree with Q. It was excellent. I mean, they've sort of said that the first 4 episodes exist as like the first act, or the first installment, if you will, of the story. And if the remaining 6 episodes are equally strong, like we're in for such a great final journey for this group. I mean, final season, I should say. We don't know what's going to happen next as far as spinoffs go. It was interesting. There really was, normally, at least what we've seen before, there was an A and a B plot line of what's happening on the ship and then what's happening for Raffi and Worf. Yeah. And this episode, we didn't get any Worf and Raffi stuff. We were focused on the ship because there was so much going on with that, and that was pretty excellent. I mean, I took a ton of notes, but I just enjoyed it thoroughly. I feel like everybody is really putting in their best work and their best efforts. Yeah. And I gotta say, like Captain Dipshit, as Q said,
look, I'm not the only one. They were throwing around the dipshits and the F-bombs.
I know.
All of that. Like, I didn't ever think I wanted to hear Captain Picard drop an F-bomb, but you know what? I'm really okay with it because he's an old man.
Yeah. It was good.
Men can just do their shit. Like, it's okay.
Just let him have his fun. Well, Shaw, he's like, I'm just some dipshit from Chicago. I am some dipshit from Chicago. I resonated with that. I was like, me too. And my name is Shaw. His name is Shaw. It's basically the same thing. In fact, when I try to type my name in, it auto-corrects to Shaw. So basically, I'm just saying I am Captain Shaw because I'm just some dipshit from Chicago. So I thought that was fantastic. That was pretty amazing. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Vector, what about you? You haven't had a chance to share your thoughts.
Yeah, this one, it's just a continuing streak of me loving this season. Yeah. And again, this is what I wanted out of seasons 1 and 2. I wanted this. What we're getting in season 3, I kind of wish we had 3 seasons of this. It feels like the evolution of TNG. This is what TNG, if it was made today, this is what it would be. And when are we going to get LaForge? When are we going to get Geordi?
It's got to be next week, right? Because the ship got the crap kicked out of it, right? So who going to fix it? It's kind of got to be him, right? Then it's like, oh, I'm proud of you, my daughter, even though you don't like to fix things, but you're a good pilot. For some reason, that's problematic for me. But
yeah,
I'm sure that'll be next week.
Yeah, I hope so. I definitely want to see some more LeVar Burton. All I've been getting for LeVar Burton lately is reading Rainbow, because that's what my 2.5-year-old is enjoying.
Nice.
Specifically, only one episode of him bowling, and so it's just I've just had LeVar on an endless stream of bowling and doing like his little like leg kicks and stuff, all the fancy footwork to get up there.
Like a highlight reel, right? Like that means like if you had to bowl against him, you know how it works.
It's true, yeah.
Like you know all the tells. Like you're walking away a winner in that one.
Yeah. I'm gonna replace his ball with something where his fingers are gonna get stuck. It's gonna be a whole thing.
Don't you hurt LeVar Burton.
This episode was funny to me. There was a lot of moments where something would happen, and I would immediately say, not just to myself, but maybe even out loud, like, "Oh, you can't do that." Like, for instance, the aspect of them going in the holodeck, as soon as they acknowledge that all this, the power is being drained, they almost have nothing left. I'm like, oh, they're just going to go to the holodeck and just hang out. And then as soon as I said it out loud, it was like Picard heard me. And Jack heard me, and they were like, oh, we have to explain this. Okay.
Yes,
so
it's got suicide batteries.
Yeah. There's a separate power cell. It's going to be okay.
People want to just die like on the beach, that we just like keep it running so they can die on the beach.
There were so many moments like that, and I was just like, stop listening to me. Or like the part with where Jack Crusher is acknowledging that his very name is pretty ironic and a little bit strange that Beverly would do such a thing and name him that, with the background and history and everything else. And that's what all the Trek fans have been talking about. Like, why did you name him Jack? Come on. So there's just a lot of moments that were very like referential in that way, where you're like,
I mean, look, she didn't name him Wesley.
It's true. It's true.
So we know where her heart truly lies, in her past.
Ooh. Yes. The description of the changelings, Shaw calls them goo people, which I thought was hilarious. Walking, talking clay dough. That was some funny stuff. So are we under the same impression that Vadic is a changeling too, based on how she chopped her hand off?
That's what I thought.
I mean, like, it seemed like that, but
then she wouldn't have to like go through the effort, right? Like, if she is a changeling, then it wouldn't be like that. She'd just be like goop, right? And then it could like splash off. So maybe she's something else. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It seemed a little strange, and then that floating like amorphous head thing was grotesque. It was body horror, and I'm not into that kind of shit. That's not fun. But it felt like that sort of kind of cut her down, as far as she's definitely not like the true baddie. She's sort of like a commander against, or a captain against an admiral or something. But like, what do you think is going on in that regard? Why is Jack so needed?
Obviously, it's something with what we saw at the very end with the red door and
he's got his Discovery Red Angel dream that he's got there at the end. Yeah.
Well, be careful. Vactor has not. He's not caught up. He just started season 2.
I didn't say who the Red Angel was. I just said there was a Red Angel dream, so it's fine.
I know. I was trying to get the brakes. Got to hit those face brakes.
I'll get caught up soon enough.
But yeah, that was an interesting thing, and it makes me wonder, like, maybe there's a little. I wonder if there's like a little bit of changeling like stuff, like goo inside of him. Maybe he had like a little like romantic situation.
Well, he saw, right? Like, he saw the Vecna like veins started popping up in his hallucination, like, right?
Yeah.
Like back behind him. And then it kept, and maybe my audio was just off. Like, was it saying find her or find me? Like, there was something that was like, it was telling him to do something.
I think it was find me.
Yeah.
Find me. Go ahead.
He had a love affair with a changeling, and then a piece got left inside of him or something. Yeah,
he got pegged by a changeling, and okay, I lost our whole audience just now. She left a little memento for him, and now he's having these fever dreams. And
I mean, or he's actually like because if we all, I think, in vivid detail remember at one point, his mom banged a space ghost, right? That came out of a candle. So maybe there's not Chateau Picard in him. Maybe it's just a little bit of space ghost candle wax. I don't know.
Ooh, maybe.
I don't know.
I can see that.
oh man, boink the ghost. That's what happened. That's
The
what
same
happened.
one that had relations with her grandmother, I think, in
Yeah,
that story,
yeah.
right? Because it was grandma's candle, it was grandma's house. So she was like, "This is why grandma never left the house." Yeah.
That's like that scene in Ghostbusters where what's his name? Dan Aykroyd is like basically having a ghost go down on him, and that's
Is that what's happening? No, no.
That's yeah.
What?
Oh man.
That's what happened. That's what happened.
Nervous about his pants.
Right, because that's why his eyes crossed too.
He's such a silly guy. Come on. I saw that when I
my
was 6
belt.
too. Come on.
Oh my belt. Oh my gosh.
Oh, man.
I think I felt like that Borg bias from Shaw was like pretty clear from the first episode. That like felt a little telegraphed. Like it was pretty obvious that there was going to be something, and I think we were all kind of connecting the dots even before he said Wolf 359 that it was going to involve that. And that it makes perfect sense why he would have, I guess, his reservations. But I think blaming Picard is a little much. The idea that he had some control over himself as Locutus. I don't know.
Well, in Shaw's defense too, he also suffered massive blunt head trauma. Like within several hours of wandering into that fake bar from fake Los Angeles and yelling at a very old man. So
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He spends most of his time laying down in his quarters. You know,
I mean, I would too. Like, there's a lot of shit going on that that's above your pay grade. Like, just like
Right.
if you can go lay down, you lay down while you can lay down. And there was time for him to lay down before he had to get up. So,
Yeah.
you're a dad, you lay down when you can lay down. So,
yeah. You sleep when the space babies are sleeping.
absolutely. As soon as you hear that space baby wake up, you're up. That's it.
Speaking of space babies, let's talk a little bit about learning that the nebula was actually a womb, and they were flying and drifting in amniotic fluid. I gotta say, Star Trek for me, one thing I absolutely love is when it bends your concept of what is possible. And also not just like the situations they get into, but the inventive solutions to those situations that they get into. That always, like, that's the feel good stuff. That's like the warm fuzzies of Star Trek for me, is knowing that no matter how screwed up or how dire the circumstances are, that they are going to put their brains together and come up with something that is going to be like something you never considered that they could do. They'll take the technology that shouldn't be used this way and use it this way. And it always, I mean, almost always works out. And I just love that. And it made me think about like, well, what is it for you both? Like, what is the real takeaway for Star Trek? Like, what's one of the main pieces of why you keep coming back?
Well, I think the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario, it's fun to figure out a way to win the unwinnable, the conquer the impossible. And a lot of Star Trek is the solution is science. And that's what, for me, I always love that about that. And also just kind of a vision of the future where, there's no money. Although in this season, we're seeing kind of the darker sides of the universe, but for most of TNG, it was like the light, happy, hey, this is the future that everybody gets along and there's no money and there's no problems for the most part. So I like that. I like that hopefulness, that optimism, and we can solve it with science. That's my takeaway.
Science
Yeah,
the hell out of it.
and they did. And I think like for me, it's 30% that. And the rest of it, like there's this, which was really nice to see, like the speech that Crusher gives everybody, Mama Crusher gives everybody in the ready room in this episode, where she's like, this is what we do. Like we like all come together. Like basically the notion of the specifically like the bridge crew being like that, you know, the Knights of the Round Table, or that family, that, you know, put each of their unique skill sets in together to make those Apollo 13 moments possible. But also to, you know, and it was a little more dramatic and a little more heavy because, oh my God, Riker was like, get off the bridge, old man, in this episode. But like those disagreements that they would have about protocol or policy or any of those things, that, you know, would usually take, you know, a whole episode to come back around. It's like, oh, I learned my lesson. And it's like, it's okay. We're all family. We come together and we science the hell out of stuff. But like, that's what I love about it. And then they finally like did that thing in this episode and so I was like, oh, this is it. This is how it's all supposed to work. So that for me is what kind of makes it special too, regardless of the crew, like whichever crew it is, even the Kelvinverse stuff, even like the JJ stuff, like Beyond is my favorite of those, which is that family trying to get back together, but it's them all doing their individual things, and dealing with their own issues about separation. Do we stay together? Do we not? That makes it all work for me.
Beyond is great. It doesn't get enough praise.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. And the whole sabotage sequence slaps. And
it does.
Like, it makes total sense. And it makes total sense. And I know it's like whatever, but it calls back to the first movie. So it makes total sense.
Yeah. I loved it. I was reading an article, and it was an interview that was done with Terry Metalis, and he was talking about how obviously the changelings are the main villains, at least that we know of so far for this season. But that's not the original plan. The original plan for this season, the overarching like bad guys, was supposed to be, or could potentially was going to be, the conspiracy bugs from that episode of TNG. I think it was called Conspiracy.
We're looking. I did the thing. I did the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
He says, I do like the conspiracy bugs. I did consider for a hot minute those bugs, but the issue is they kill their host. So that means anyone who you saw with a bug in them would be dead. And so you wouldn't be able to do the paranoia thriller that you wanted to do if somebody you loved. That meant they were dead. So there were a few different storylines that he couldn't do without killing legacy characters. So they found another way to sort of hide beneath the surface.
Look, I mean, when was it last episode when they caught Terminator Boy, Thomas Dekker, when Rafi did, they ran him down, and then Sarah Connor, he said he name dropped the Great Link, and like my wife was like on her laptop and like half watching with me and not, and I was like, what? And she was like, what? I'm like, no, it's this thing where it's like, it's this ocean and it's made out of all these like goo people. And she's like, is that what the ship is in right now? I'm like, no, one must have stuck on board. She's like, okay, sure. All right.
Man. So I have the theory about like the tendrils and all that stuff, like the seeing the red. My thought is that he's accessing like the Great Link in some way, shape, or form. That there, maybe it has to do with his DNA. There's something like he has basically however he's gotten it, he's got a little bit of changeling in him. And maybe that's making the, whoever it belonged to, incomplete. And that's why he's so like needed. Like they need they need him to get that aspect of the Great Link back or something. I don't know, but like it seems like he's tapping into something way beyond himself. So it feels like with the changelings being involved, that seems to be a most like likely source of things.
I mean, they went way out of their way for many, many years on Deep Space Nine that it all boiled down to like them just wanting Odo to come home, right? Like that was the big, like the great link. Sorry if you're watching or listening to this and you didn't watch all of that show 20 years ago.
They had time.
But R.I.P. Renee Auberjonois. But but I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that's like, and this is like where I go to like my like super galaxy brain, like drama writer sadness or whatever. Is like, is that really not Jack Crusher? Like, was there never really a Jack Crusher?
Ooh.
Like, is that like, is it like how Odo was like sent away or escaped on a rock or some shit? Like, I don't even remember at this point. Like, but that he was lost from the tribe and had to come back home. And so just like for the nature of like found family versus you can be who you want to be versus legacy and all that stuff, like it doesn't matter because Picard himself is not even really a person anymore, right? Because he's like he's data robot, which they kind of like they bring up and they push away because it really doesn't matter at the end of the day because he's just an old man. But so I think there could be a sad angle on that if that's how it ties back into Great Link stuff, which is why they're so adamant about specifically getting him back home.
Yeah.
Ooh,
We asked a guest last week what the other thing was that was stolen from the Daystrom Institute, and that person said it was Captain Rick from last week's episode, but he said he thinks it's lore.
I do too.
Yeah. It seems like the most likely outcome. And actually, I think I saw, it might have been a social media post or something, but they recently had said that lore was being held at the Daystrom Institute. So that
it makes sense, right? Like, I think, because I think that's because in one of the first trailers for the season, they had my personal favorite holographic Moriarty was like yelling at everyone in one of those teasers. And so I think, I don't know if it's Daystrom, but Lower Decks has also set up that there's a jail where all the bad AI are sent.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they keep finding bad AI and they keep shoving them into like different cubicles in the whatever. So like it tracks for me that there would be a place if we know we're getting to Daystrom, which would make sense at some point that we get there. That and knowing that lore is in the show because he was also in a trailer. That's how that all like folds in. Like, I'm happy to be surprised and wrong with that. But it seems to make sense.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. I just thought there was a ton of action this week. There was a ton of great character development and back and forth. Like Q said in the Crusher speech, there's a lot of great speeches in this episode. Just a very well done episode, and the throwing of the boulder, the asteroid, the dispatching of the Shrike was chef's kiss.
Well, and I don't remember it, but a very good friend of mine sent me was it a GIF or it was something from like Riker had a beard, so it must have been like season 2 Riker maybe. But where he's talking about can't we just grab a rock and throw it at them? So if that is in fact the case, and it's that kind of deep, or is it, could you arrange to find me some rocks to throw at them? Is what Frakesy is saying right there in that. I don't know if you can see it.
That it wouldn't surprise me that Terry Metalis would sort of arrange that to call it back, because there's been so many callbacks to things. Vactor, you were showing me earlier, you sent me a text. It was a tweet from Terry Metalis, and can you describe that again? So they were talking about the fact that this changeling that was hiding aboard the Titan A was hiding his bucket, his Mr. Bucket, And people were kind of in an uproar on Twitter about it because they thought that was more or less not really a changeling thing, but an Odo thing, which I kind of agree with, but I'm willing to look the other way on it. Like, it didn't seem like it needed to be, because most changelings are just part of the Great Link. Like, they're not, and they don't necessarily need a specific bucket to go into. But I think like that was Odo was given that, and that's why he uses it. But
they do, right, have to revert to a liquid form for a specific period of time every now and then, right, in order to regenerate.
Yes, they do.
So they do have to do that at least. So presumptively, garbage can, bucket, sonic toilet, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, you would think anything would work. Yeah. A thirst buster, you know. Depends how much goo you got. But Vactor, tell me, share the tweet, Terry Metalis had said.
Yeah, so someone tweeted to him, hey, why do all the changelings now have a Bajoran bucket, which they carry around with them, like the one Odo did in Deep Space Nine? And then his response was, this particular changeling is going to have a 12-issue backstory for IDW that gets his Bajoran-like bucket on Deep Space 11. It's tribal. And so I thought that was, and I've seen him, Terry Metalis, respond to a lot of people with different, just kind of memes and jokes and
slightly very very trollish.
Pulling their legs. But
I mean,
actually,
if you had to, right? Like Odo had a bucket, and it worked pretty well for him for a while, right? Then he goes back home and goes into the pond. And everyone's like, hey, what was life like on the outside? And he's like, I had a bucket. And they're all like, what's this bucket you speak of? So then it seems like buckets seem like a pretty rad idea. So then when these extremists break free to go do whatever it is they're doing, it's like, don't forget your buckets, guys.
Yeah.
Because Odo taught them all about the goodness of the bucket.
That's funny.
Oh, man.
He actually... I just noticed this about 8 hours ago. He answered the question about Vatic that we had earlier in this very episode of the podcast. So this comes straight from showrunner Terry Metalis' mouth. Vatic and her gang are changelings. She does not have a special hand. That is the official tweet.
Okay.
Interesting.
Terry Metalis.
Well, maybe she's got to cut it. That way they can't do like the Clayface thing and make like 9 little changelings. Like you gotta... You gotta hurt yourself to do it.
Yeah, that's the new canon. But I like the changelings being maybe the big bad of this season, and it's just something different that I just like Clayface. Okay, I like morphers. I like morph from the X-Men.
You like
I like
goo.
People. I like gabagoo. So I like the changelings as the villains. So more changelings. I want to see more. And the whole 7 chasing down the changeling on the ship. That whole like mystery plot, detective storyline. I liked it. I liked her tracking them down.
Well, and she's very much the gift that just keeps on giving. Like of all of the, like when you think about especially how things were presented at the time, like when Voyager happened and we've got to like put more sexuality in and like boost the ratings and whatever, and then she shows up in a cat suit and she was like a Borg and then she's in this thing. But she's such a complex character. Like the friendship she had with Janeway and all of that stuff through Voyager, that like there's still that big journey for Annika Hansen. I think it's one of the nicest surprises of like all the different crews and the legacy stuff and the show going on, is that, you know, what seemed like a throwaway, you know, pre-Maxim cover kind of thing to try and boost ratings, was actually like the introduction of a really interesting long-term legacy character.
Yeah, I love 7. She's fantastic. Yeah. I didn't necessarily love her and Rafi together, but I like what she's doing now. I like the dynamic of I guess what I think is really great about Shaw is even though he has this disdain for Borg, and I would go as far as to say it's just straight up, bigotry or racism or whatever speciesism, I guess. I don't know. Cyborgisms. It's an ism of some kind. But he still is the one choosing his crew. So he chose her to be his first officer. And I think that says a lot about what he recognizes as what she contributes to the bridge and to the crew. And so I think that's great.
And that he's not that much of a dipshit too. Because that shows that he's actually he's stacking his deck with people he knows will challenge him too. Because like you said, it's not an accident that she wound up in that chair.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Fantastic.
I'm worried about with the show is that the Picard seasons have a tendency to be strong starts, kind of muddy middles, and then the ending, it usually satisfies, but they don't always blow us away. And so I'm a little worried going into episode 5 that we're going to feel that, I guess, that drop off. But then again, we're kind of starting a new installment within the story. So that's going to have a certain amount of required exposition to get us where we need to go for what's next. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on season 3? What we have yet to see?
I told you, LaForge. Give me Geordi and give me more Samurai Wharf. I want more Ninja Wharf.
Chamomile tea.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting, I wonder if, and I'm sure it is, but so many other IP or companies, when they're doing the cross-platform, James Gunn with the DCE stuff that's happening, right? Where it's all of our video games and our cartoons and our movies are all going to be connected. And I know that there is a Star Trek Defiant comic dropping that has Worf and Lore both in it as part of Starfleet Intelligence, right? So, and that happens in a time when it happens kind of in tandem with the Cisco Star Trek book. So I assume it's all woven from the same place, and that's how Worf wound up being part of Starfleet Intelligence and how he winds up in Raffi's story. But I kind of like that they're not blowing the horn of yeah, we've got this and it's all integrated and we're going to do this. It's just this nice little treat. I don't know. It's like someone saying I'm the honor student. My kid's an honor student in such and such a school, where it's your kid can be an honor student without that. You don't have to yell about it.
Yeah,
I just think it's nice that they're not if it is in fact that coordinated, and it could very well be, that they're not making a huge deal about it. I think it's just a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Well said.
I like that. And I like Bryan Q. Miller.
I do too.
Is the two things that I like. And I like Captain Shaw. I also like all of our listeners out there and everyone who has supported us and followed us on our journey. We thank you very much, but we can still use your help and your support. You can always follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at TREKNOPOD. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And then you can also share us with your family and friends. We're all one big Trek family. So if you could share us around, let us know what's going on in your world and what's going on in Trek's world. We are always here to talk Trek with all of our friends. Don't forget, also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you can give us a rating, 5 stars, if you please. That will help us out very much.
Yes. And just a quick bit of housekeeping. Captain Vactor and I have decided to shelf any future Boldly Dadding episodes. Yeah, I know. Hold back the tears. Unfortunately, despite how much we enjoyed planning them and recording the episodes, and also just being dads, we've noticed that the amount of plays drops considerably for any Boldly Dadding episodes, and that just tells us that our audience would prefer to listen to Trek content. So with that in mind, we're going to listen to you, even if you're not outwardly saying it, you're saying it by not playing it. For the time being, what we're going to do is we're going to transmit that aspect of our show to the Daystrom Institute for archival purposes. And that's going to be like that until some changeling baddies decide to steal it and broadcast it in the Alpha Quadrant or something. So, but yeah, thank you so much for listening and supporting Boldly Dadding. And if you feel strongly that you think we should bring it back, then all you got to do is scroll down to the bottom of our show notes. And there is an option to click a link to send us a voice memo, and we'll play it on the podcast. And you can say, please bring it back. I love when you guys talk about being dads and boldly dadding and stuff. And we'll listen to you. But if you don't, then we know that we did the right thing.
Yes. We would like to thank the screenwriter for Justice League versus Teen Titans, Mr. Bryan Q. Miller.
Thank you, gentlemen.
A fantastic Trek enthusiast, and we loved having you on. You have an open chair. You can always join our crew anytime you want.
Oh, and show your ships. Show your ships.
Oh, yes. I'm good. For the video viewers, I've got my little Eagle Moss, my Defiant, which is my favorite ship.
That is such a great ship.
It is such a great ship. And then the Enterprise E.
Yeah.
And then I had to dig because I haven't had Star Trek stuff in a long time. But I have this mug that I got from the Star Trek Fan Club magazine when I was 14 years old. So this is a 30-year-old mug. And I don't know if it used to change colors or something. There's like a weird fading like degradation on there, but it's got the Enterprise D and the LCARS map set up and stuff on it. So that's one of my oldest prized possessions at this point. So I didn't even put anything in it for this because I didn't want to ruin it. So
dang, that's nice.
That's what I got.
Very nice.
Thank you for sharing that.
We very much thank you for sharing, and thank you for joining today, my friend.
Thank you.
Don't forget, next week, we're going to continue our ongoing recap and review of Star Trek Picard Season 3. And you heard it here first. Q says that LeVar Burton is appearing in the next episode. So if he doesn't appear,
Bowling with Geordi.
Hey, that's a spinoff I would watch. But we will continue next week on TREKNOPOD. I believe our mission of the week is complete. Now, boldly go and have a great week, everybody.
Live long
and prosper.
Prosper.
Yay!